Great. Thank you very much. My name is Clara Karton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brainware AI, where we're developing a simple and effective solution to better monitor and manage head impacts in sport. I'm going to start off with a video. This is a video in NFL. The quarterback, you can see, is going to be tackled to the ground. He hits his head on the turf. And when he gets up, he's wobbling, he shakes his head off, sort of like he's shaking off an injury. His teammates are helping him stand up. But 4 days later, he went through the assessments and he was cleared to play. He was back on the field 4 days later. And again, a similar situation happened where he was tackled again, hits his head on the turf. But now what we're witnessing is a much more severe reaction to the trauma. This is posturing. And it's likely because his brain hadn't fully recovered from that first impact. So arguably the largest sports stage in the world is the NFL, with the most amount of resources, access to medical professionals. But what happens when we talk about youth and amateur leagues is now the stakes are much higher and they don't have access to these resources. This is Rowan Stringer. Many of you might be aware of her. She had a similar situation with much more severe consequences. Rowan died at the age of 17 from multiple unrecognized and untreated concussions. So one of the biggest challenges is that identifying head impacts on the field is extremely difficult and subjective. Many organizations rely on observation from the sideline or self-reporting from athletes. This results in less than 50% of concussions being reported and treated. And with delayed or no clinical care, this leads to longer and less effective recovery, where 1/3 of youth struggle with mental health issues and they show higher rates of high school dropout. We also know repeated traumas, whether they result in concussions or not, lead to long-term damage. A recent study showed over 40% of their sample, and these were athletes younger than the age of 30, showed early signs of brain disease from repeated traumas. So this was youth, high school, and college teams. Our solution is a real-time head impact monitoring software that only requires video, where we use AI to automatically analyze every head impact. We identify and track players from the moment they step on the field or court or rink to identify head impacts throughout the game. We then calculate the severity of the impact using objective measures that we know associate with brain injury. And this ensures athletes are examined and seek medical attention more effectively for these high-risk head impacts, while also incorporating multiple head impacts to a continued surveillance geared towards management of those repeat injuries. So specifically how this works is we use computer vision to track players, their heads, and the environment throughout the game to detect head impacts. We then use predictive analytics, where AI techniques are used to extract key features that we need to calculate the severity of the head impact by essentially predicting what's happening within the brain. If these values exceed predetermined thresholds, we have a real-time alert that notifies the sidelines geared towards early recognition of concussion. And also through tracing the history of the athlete, we create really large data sets aimed to provide better guidance on preventing and management, specifically tailored for the individual. So much like what you would see in patient-centered care. Here's a demonstration of our video, of our technology. There's multiple layers sort of working in the background. The first is really to track players on the field of view so that we can identify individual players. We then specifically track their heads. So we have motion of their heads and we can detect when the impact occurs. When a head impact occurs, we track the whole body and we scale the video to real world units to extract those key features that we need to predict. Finally, we localize the players using a top-down view of the field of play so that we can predict what's happening within the brain. Currently, our team consists of 5 founders. So myself, my background is in neurotrauma. I have over 10 years experience in project management and consulting experience within the sports industry. So my primary responsibility is the day-to-day operations of the company at this point. Blaine Hoshizaki is also an internationally recognized researcher in brain injury and sport. and also is our business development and strategy expert. He's held executive roles with Bauer and CCM and co-founded 2 successful startups. Ryan Graham is our technology expert. He's created technology in health and performance. So he's really leading the development of our automated system, our automated tracking system using video. Alison Clouthier is expert in biomedical engineering and machine learning. So she leads the creation of those sport and demographic specific algorithms that we use in our prediction models. And Gwyneth Ross is our data analyst. She's good with numbers and has worked closely with athletes in USA Hockey USA Ski, analyzing large amounts of data sets, and has also worked as a finance lead for 3 small businesses. So she's responsible for our budgets and projections. We have 2 advisors. Dr. Cantu is our medical advisor. This is to ensure that our product stays consistent with useful information in a clinical setting. And also Adam Perelman is our technology advisor. He's an ex-CTO for Affinity Inc. So he's offered his guidance in because he has experience in building out and leading tech teams and raising capital. He helped raise 80 million in Series C for Affinity. So what we're seeing with the increased awareness is really a change in behavior around sport participation. Over 90% of parents now indicate that concussion concern affects their decision-making on what sports their children play. Athletes themselves are choosing not to play sport altogether for fear of concussions, and registration is dropping within some sports, likely to continue to precipitate in other sports as knowledge grows. And all of these factors are influencing the global concussion market. It's continuing to grow as people search for essentially a holy grail in concussion diagnosis, expected to reach 8.9 billion by 2027. At the professional leagues, concussion is quite a political injury with its own set of challenges. So we find that the youth and amateur athletes are much more receptive to safer play strategy, and in fact represents over 99% of people that play sport. So our market is really in the school systems with over 60,000 schools across North America, and in the community leagues, representing 16 million youth registered in what we would consider a high-risk sport. We see 3 primary drivers that indicate this is the right time for our solution. Multiple national health institutes now acknowledge that there is in fact a link between repetitive trauma and brain disease, including Alzheimer's, CTE, Parkinson's, and the NIH has now deemed this a public health priority. We also see litigation around the mismanagement of head injuries starting to trickle down from professional leagues to include those in high school and youth sports, adding additional pressure to these organizations. And finally, there's rapidly growing technology across all sectors. The sport tech market is expected to grow to $79.2 billion industry within the next 10 years. So with the increase that we're seeing in the quality and availability of video capture, many teams are already filming their games of all ages, or can be easily installed at low prices. This allows us to leverage the advancing technologies to create an affordable, accessible, and purely SaaS product. How we compare, mainly our competition would be accelerometers placed in mouth guards, and there's one company using their own camera setup to measure the force of an impact. And where we all are similar is that we aim to provide more objective measurements of trauma that are rooted in evidence-based practices. However, unlike our competition, our algorithms are developed specifically to match the risks of the sport and the demographic of the players. And most importantly, our competition all have high barriers of entry. They're expensive and require management and maintenance of hardware, where we don't require hardware or wearables, so we can come in at a price point that's 10 times lower than our competitors. Going to market, we plan is really based around the traction we've gained in private and public sectors. Specifically in the school boards, we've gained visibility at the school board level, targeting the directors of the board or directors of student activities and athletics. So these are people that have influence over decision making, allowing us to get into many more schools more quickly. Our initial sport is ice hockey. We have deep knowledge in this sport and strong relationships with CCM hockey. We also strategically using our channels and partnership with those with broad reach within the community, specifically Concussion Legacy Foundation, which is a nonprofit in the United States that has reach within many of the sports organizations as well as insurance companies. And we plan to launch with schools that are very progressive and forward-leaning in adopting safer play strategy. Specifically, Riverdale is part of a number of advocacy programs, and they hold international press conferences around their initiative. So this would be very good exposure for Brainware. Our pricing is based on an annual membership per sport. And again, we're going into ice hockey first. It's a smaller community, so we feel like this is a good test bed for our product market fit before going into larger markets, which will be soccer in our second year. We're going to be starting in the school board level and progressively moving into the community leagues before we enter a new sport, because we do require additional development per sport. So we see our revenue at the end of year 3 as 1.2 billion and being approximately used by 5,000 teams. To date, we hold a PCT filed with the rights to our company, and we currently have high accuracy levels within most of our models and are increasing our image data, aiming to have refined models for each of our technical components by the end of this year, so that beginning next year, we can validate within the sport environment and aim to have a testable app within 9 months and a product launch within a year. We're seeking investment of $500,000, which would give us a 15-month runway. So this would allow us to hire some personnel, validate our working prototype, test with beta users, and get us to that product launch. Sport is really meant as a fun and positive environment for youth, but as we could see, comes with real concern regarding brain injury, which is continuing to rise every day. So we feel that Brainware provides us with an opportunity to continue to foster those benefits of sport while still protecting the future of young athletes. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Clara. 16. Okay, Alec, do you want to kick us off with some comments? Yeah, Amy, I noticed that too. You made some great changes there, Clara, from after yesterday's presentation session.
Oh, hoping to do some more when I have another session with her.
That's great. All right, go ahead, Alec.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Clara. I think similar comments to what I said before, although you did address some of them. You know, I guess at the end, you kind of made it more clear, I think, that you still need to validate your models and the product, and then there would be a product launch. So that's good. Yeah, I think, you know, as an investor, I'd want to know, you know, when you talk about the team, I'd want to know who's actually full-time or part-time, or who's actually on the team and what their status is. I mean, that can always come in another question. You know, the market slide is good. You know, 8.9 billion concussion market is nice and big, but I'd like to see more. What is your service addressable market, or what's more specific to you? Because I'm sure that covers a lot of things. The go-to-market with the schools, I still struggle with that. I think I commented before about, you know, are all these games have cameras? Do they have suitable cameras or not? You know, frankly, I think it'd be better to go like with the NHL and get the brand and the exposure. You're going to get a lot more visibility and exposure with something big like that than going with a school, was my view. Yeah, and yeah, so then it's a SaaS only platform, no hardware, but it still requires a video stream. I'd like a little bit more details on that, like streaming from a local arena may be quite a technical challenge, I'd imagine. I'm curious, you know, what kind of resolution you need to run your models against. Again, where if you could tap into something at you know, a higher sports level, I mean, I'm sure they're going to have all that solved and the technology there and the correct resolution that you need and things like that. Yeah, anyways, yeah, it was good. I mean, you mentioned about the additional development for sport. So, you know, I think it's important to mention those kind of things, because, you know, it's not all roses. So an investor wants to know, you know, what is down the path, the future path from a product development standpoint, and how does this scale? So the business model looks good. If you're going with the school model, it seems totally feasible, assuming those technical hurdles can be overcome. So that's great. But understanding, like, yeah, we need to do some more things for soccer or whatever other sport is good. And yeah, I liked that you kind of outlined a little bit more about where you are and, you know, the testing of the viability and creating the product, and that there's going to be hires to do that. I'd like to know the existing team, whether they were hired or not. But, you know, in general, it's a very compelling story. I mean, there's no doubt about the way you present the problem. The videos are great. Your deck is great. You speak very well. So that's all great. For me, it's more just around, you know, the risk around, does this actually work and how does it actually get deployed? So hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thanks, Alec. Farhana, would you like to jump in here?
Sure. Probably very similar feedback in echoing. So, you know, just like what Alex said, I think your pace is really good. You hit on sort of the key points. You don't read from the slides. You're calm and composed in terms of what you're going for. You do paint a good picture in terms of there's a problem in the industry around this, and we have a potential solution to address this that could have a low cost barrier or low cost of entry perspective. So I think that is all there. The challenge that I had was understanding, like Jane will know this, I'm a big fan of when you paint a problem, you really need to basically stick the knife in the liver and turn it several times. Like you need to really make sure that the investor, whoever you're pitching to, really understands that pain. And this is where, with respect to your go-to-market, I'm not as confident as you are that the high schools are going to understand that pain point. You know, even if you went like below NHL and went to like, I don't know hockey that well, sorry, but like, you know, the high AAA, whatever it's called, right? You went to that because those are the feeders into the NHL. They're going to have the equipment, they're going to have, you know, footage on everything that will help, because my concern would be around the angles that they're capturing, right? And in high school markets, I'm not confident they would capture all of the right angles in order to provide you a strong confidence to those predictive models. So I think for your target market, I think you have to go higher because A, they're going to have the money. B, they have the pain point, because if they can attract players based on, listen, we invest heavily in your health and well-being, even if it was within US college hockey, right? Because they're same thing, there's the money that is there and they're making those large investments. I think regional schools perhaps won't be that great of a target because they don't feel that pain, right? Like people buy stuff because either they want to make money or save money, right? And there you're going to feel more of the pain point. And I didn't get that from the presentation. And I think it's really important to create that compelling event.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you both. I am just going to, hang on a second.